Hey everybody, welcome back to Difference Makers. My name is Pastor Tyler Warner from Calvary Chapel, Trussville. We're very glad to have you with us today as we continue our series that we started last time called Living a Complete Life. This is going to be part 2 out of 3, I'm estimating. Maybe we'll do a tie-off at the end and do a part 4, but we're talking about every aspect of your life and how to maximize that as unto the Lord. So before we get to that, though, I want to remind you about ironworks.media. At Calvary Chapel, Trussville, we are building the premier Christian resource network for the church. We are building something that gives you podcasts and books and videos and conferences and Bible studies. We just released a new book this summer called The Desolation of Israel. We just had some interviews on the radio around here. I was very blessed to get a chance to do that. So maybe some of y'all have been hearing about it in other places. I hope so. I think you'll enjoy it. I hope you go pick it up. If you sign up for our mailing list on ironworks.media, you will get 2 free ebooks right away, which are some shorter things that I've written that I think you'll enjoy. And you'll be able to be updated about all the new things that are coming up this year, including we've got another book coming out this November, which is a really exciting ministry biography. I think you're going to love it. I'm really excited to talk about that once we get it on here. But that's all at ironworks.media. And if you want to find out more about the church I pastor, you can go to calvarychapeltrussville.com. All right, so Living a Complete Life, Part 2. Last time, we began to address all the different areas of our life in order to try and improve them. You know, we talked about hyper-focus and how we don't want to do that. That you can pick the thing that you say, that's my calling, that's what I'm supposed to do, which for me is being a pastor, right? But that's not the only part of my life. If I were to only focus on that and neglect everything else, well, I would, number one, not be as effective a pastor in the first place, but secondarily, I'd see all sorts of other problems coming up, and sometimes people will hide in the one area of life they're successful and neglect everything else, but this is all about being a well-rounded person. And last time we looked at the first 3, I called that the inner life. I looked at the inner aspects of a person, the things that are foundational to everything else. And as I have said, these things, in my opinion, are in ranked order of importance, you know, starting from the top and going to the bottom. So first of all, we looked at the spiritual life, the spiritual aspects of life, meaning following Christ, your relationship with God, His holiness, making sure that you're obeying Him in every area of your life. Second, we had physical. We had the physical aspect of your life, which is your health and your fitness, making sure that you are taking care of your body. And I do put that ahead of the rest of these things because I think that getting that right opens up so many other areas of your life. And number 3, we talked about the personal life, meaning your relationships, your behaviors, everything that really makes you you, who you're connected to, what you do, even things up to how you present yourself as a person. Anything that is about your identity, we might say. Everything else is going to be more and more external to you as we move forward. So that's the inner life. Spiritual things, physical things, and your personal life. We looked at Psalm 127, which is all about not eating the bread of anxious toil, but trusting that the Lord will give you sleep, that there's more to your life than just one thing. And we looked at Ecclesiastes chapter 9, which is becoming one of our classic verses here on Difference Makers, which is about doing all that you have as unto the Lord and rejoicing with the bride of your youth. But I'm going to give us some more scriptures here because I find that many Christians have a hard time accepting that things that are not directly religious can in fact be spiritual and the Bible can apply to them. Let me read to you Colossians chapter 3. And in fact, in my opinion, I think Paul is directly making reference to Ecclesiastes 9 when he gives this instruction here. Colossians 3, 23 through 24. So whatever you do, work heartily, that is, put your heart into it, as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. Paul actually said that to slaves that were in the church. He was saying, you work as unto the Lord, not to your master. And in the same way, every area of your life, whoever is making you do it, if you do it as unto the Lord, you will be rewarded, Paul says. Then in Luke 16, verses 8 and 9, we've done a whole episode on this story. This is the parable of the shrewd steward that Jesus gave. Luke 16, 8 and 9. The conclusion of that story is Jesus said, the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. That is to say, the people in the world are more clever about how to get ahead in secular things than the children of God are in moving ahead in spiritual things. So he says, I tell you, make friends for yourself by means of unrighteous wealth, so that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. He's saying the aspects of your life that you don't consider directly spiritual, leverage those things for the kingdom of God. This is a very important lesson for us to have. We cannot neglect part of our life out of a misunderstanding of the gospel or of a hyper focus on something. Especially young men have a tendency to do this. It's all about getting the degree. It's all about getting a wife. It's all about growing that business. It's all about making more money and neglecting something else. So, pardon me, guys, I got something in my eye here. But we need to be living as whole people, living complete lives, start to finish, top to bottom. And today you're going to see that these things are important, but they're kind of becoming less important to us. And by the time we get to the end, we're going to see things that you might not even consider important at all. However, because they make a complete person, it's important that we're leveraging them all for the glory of God. And as I like to say, maximizing everyone, making everyone as great as we possibly can. At the very least, giving directed attention to your whole life. So piece number 4 here, the fourth aspect of your life that we're going to look at is the professional life. So we talk about the personal life. I would say that goes above this one, but I'll call this the professional life. And this is not complicated. By here, I mean your job, whether that is your main job, your side hustle, anything else you do for work, whether it is enjoyable or not, whether it is a dream that you've been living out, or whether it's just something you're doing for a paycheck. We're talking here about our professional lives. And this is very important. I say this comes directly after your inner life. This is going to be a large piece of your time. It's going to be a large piece of your attention, and it's also interesting because it's going to be a part of your life that most of your friends, unless they work with you, don't really see much of. Your wife doesn't work there, your kids don't work there, your friends don't see you work there, and it's one of the most fascinating things that our professions are one of the things that the people that know us the best know the least about. But because it, of course, affects us very deeply, we need to know about this. It comes after these other things. I want to make that point first. Your job is not more important than your spiritual life. Your job is not more important than your health, whether that's health or fitness, by the way. And it's not more important than your personal life, your relationships, and how you carry yourself. Because all those other 3 things, they're going to move from job to job. Professional life, though, is going to be something that can change. But I don't want to talk badly about it. I just want to make sure we have it in its proper place. And we like to make this point here. It might have been Chris Rock that said this first, but it's very true. He said, some people have careers and some people have jobs. And that's very true. I've had careers and I've had jobs. I worked at Ruby Tuesday. That was not my dream to work at Ruby Tuesday. I hauled junk for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. That was not my favorite thing to do. There was a while where I worked in radio. I've worked a couple of different radio jobs. I still do that on the side. And I could have made a career out of that. I actually got opportunities to make a career out of the junk thing too, to open up a franchise. But I had something else that God was calling me to do. And that, of course, is to pastor this church. And that's my career. But for the rest of us, even if you don't have something that gets you out of bed every morning for something other than a paycheck, that's fine. I still want us to put it at the top of the list because we need to maximize this because it is too big a slice of the pie for you to treat like something you just check in and check out and be miserable about it all day long. So your task in this regard is to see that you are tending to your professional life as best you can. You are making the most out of that professional life, which includes changing it if need be, but we'll come back to that in a little bit. We've talked a lot about changing the game around here. But you need to be seeing, am I doing my best at this job? And this is not that weird corporate thing where they expect you to treat the company like you own it, you know what I mean? I'm saying, are you doing your job to the best of your ability? Are you making the most out of it? Are you finding ways to do it more efficiently? Are you coming up with better ideas in order to make it maybe a little less miserable? This could also involve the way you treat other people on your job. I work in a job where it's me and one other person, and he's my best friend, and I hired him. So, it's very easy for us to work together. But you maybe got a job where you're stuck on a garbage truck with somebody that does not like you very much. I've been there before. But are you making the most out of that? This involves the responsibilities, the policies, the deadlines. A lot of your professional life is going to be handed to you. It's not something that you develop for yourself. Even if you are in business for yourself, there's things that got to be done whether you want to do them or not. And they have to get done. So you're going to get deadlines. You're going to get projects. You're going to get tasks. You're going to get assignments for overtime, whatever it may be. And this all needs to be included. You can't just show up to work and hope that things are going to go well. You have to have a plan. I really want you to be thinking actively about how you're going to do your job so that when these things come to you, it's part of the plan, so that it kind of becomes, you are sort of owning it. Like the assignments are coming from outside, but you're finding a way to work it into a structure that you have made and that you can enjoy to do. Think about how best you can leverage your time to accomplish the job. Sometimes you get these places where they incentivize you to take a long time, and that's really a shame. But there's many places where you can get the job done in 5 hours or 1 hour. That doesn't mean you got to do it as fast as possible, because I've worked other jobs where you finish one thing too quickly, they're going to get you something else, and now you've got more to do, and then the other things piles up. Is there a happy medium, a way for you to get it done quickly, where you're showing that you're doing well, but you're not killing yourself, because you're going to be here for 50 years, and there's no point in grinding yourself down to the nub every single day. So leveraging your time. And if you're thinking about this and you're like, the thought of trying to maximize this job, Tyler, just about makes me want to jump off a bridge, really. And okay, then that means we got to get back to this other piece of it, which maybe you need to make a plan of how to accomplish your task, but as part of a longer plan of how to get out of there, of how to move into a different job, to move into a better career. I encourage people at our church all the time, and it surprises me how often I have to do this, just to give them permission and encourage them, say, why don't you switch jobs? You don't got to stay there. You hate working for that guy? You don't have to work for him. Free country. And God didn't tell you to work there. So go look for another job. And they say, oh, well, he wants us to be loyal to him. Like his loyalty goes about as far as that paycheck he gives you if he's your boss, man. So it's also one of the reasons why working with family can be a fraught situation. But you got to maybe have a longer plan. Maybe you got something you got to start doing on the side. I'm a pastor, but I've got things that I do on the side. I got things that I do to make a little extra money. I said I do radio business on the side. And I'm always looking to see how can I do this better. And if it starts taking up too much of a proportion, sometimes we down throttle it. Sometimes I get a great idea for something that we could do, and I make a big plan, and I look at it and I go, this isn't going to fit. It's not going to work in this career, so we put it off to the side, and maybe that means forever. But you're constantly thinking about what is the plan. If you can't give it all to the job that you're in, maybe consider how you could change that. This is going to be the majority of your life and majority of your time, so make it great. If you are trying to maximize your life and make it wonderful and be a complete person, take time to consider, how do I do this job? Not just showing up and letting somebody else who you don't even approve of his style anyway tell you what to do. So that's our fourth aspect of life. And the next one is very closely tied to this, the previous one, but I think it's important that you have this one following the previous one because otherwise you can start to get in trouble. This is your financial life. Your financial life. So we've had our spiritual, physical, and personal life. That's the inner life. Today we're talking about what you could call responsibilities, the things that you must do. And we started with the professional life. Now we move on to the financial life. Excuse me. This means your paycheck. This means how it is spent, means how it is budgeted for. It involves your investments. It involves your debts. It involves people that want to borrow from you. Any other money issues fall under this category. And I separate this from the job and the personal life, although it certainly overlaps with both of those areas, for emphasis, which is that this is something that you need to be thinking about separately and consistently. You can't just say, well, it'll get done, and you kind of hastily pay the bills every month. You need to be having a plan and thinking about how are you going to address your finances. And if you think that God does not care about how you handle your finances, you clearly have not read the book of Proverbs very closely. There's all sorts of important and very practical advice that he gives us. So you should be approaching your finances, I would say, apart from just your personal life, it's got to get done, and also apart from your professional life, which is where you make that money. It's important to have a plan, not just to survive, although I've had those seasons before where these next 6 months, all we're trying to do is stay in this house and make sure we got something to eat on this table. But long term, that's not where you want to stay. You want to have a plan to provide and to even prosper with your finances. We spent a lot of time talking about how, there's some people that go nuts with the whole prosperity thing, but God does delight to prosper and bless his people. And in fact, you live in an age where there are more opportunities for you to prosper and to grow than ever before. We live in an age where to live a life that the richest king could never conceive of, all you got to do is be middle class, which is pretty special. So as a Christian, as a leader of your family, as a leader in your own life and in your business, you've got to be thinking to yourself, what am I going to do in order to maximize this? It's not talking about being greedy and vainglorious. It's talking about, if I've got the option to do this, I should. I think of how Paul told the slaves in the book of 1 Corinthians. He says, if you got the opportunity to get free, get free. He tells them, you need to be satisfied with where God has placed you and not to be bitter and to serve your master well. But if you got the chance to get out from under that, get out from underneath that. And I think in the same way for us, although it's certainly not as severe a circumstance, there's a lot of times where, we can get by and we can move like this, but the Lord would almost say to you, but if you get the opportunity to step up and to level up and to prosper, then go for it. The Lord would bless that in your life. So there's a lot of traps in the days in which we live, and there's some people like to just focus on that, and marketing is this and that, and it's hard to tell what's true, and there's deceptive contracts, and sometimes you feel like, all the best opportunities to make money already require you to have money. Boy, have I ever felt that way before. But there's also lots of opportunities. And we've talked before about maybe not trying to, be the billionaire in this lifetime, but setting yourself up so that your kids and their kids can maybe step up a little farther. So what's your plan? First of all, you got to be paying attention and making sure your bills are getting paid. That's the bare minimum. You'd be surprised how many people come to me and I ask them how they're going, and they go, well, I haven't paid this bill in 3 months. I go, why not? Oh, we just don't have the money. But then they invite me out to lunch like a few days later. I'm like, what are you doing going out to lunch? You got bills to pay. So you got to be responsible with that. This all goes in tandem with a budget that is tracking your finances. I'll tell you, my financial world, I remember I talked last time about tracking calories and what a shock that was, how it was really not a pleasant experience, although it's a helpful one. When I started tracking expenses, not just paying bills and everything, but every time something went in, adjusting the number, that's a sobering thing. Because you think, oh, we're just going to go out and, my wife bought a few things. Yeah, she bought a few things, and now look at what's actually left in this thing. So you got to start tracking it. You can't be guessing with your finances. If you're wanting to be, especially, this show all about being a difference maker, about being somebody, about building something for yourself. If you don't know what's in that account, you're going to be in big trouble, my friend. So take the time. You got to be an adult. You can't just spend money because you want something. You got to do everything on purpose. And if you really want something, you'll buckle down and deny yourself other things in order to get there. I'd say it is and I've had this before, so I'm not disrespecting, but I'm saying this the way it is. A poor mentality says, we'll never be able to get such and such, so let's just get something smaller now. But that's the very mindset that's keeping you down. If you think, well, that would be 2 years from now, we'll be able to get that house, so let's just not bother. Let's just go out and, let's go on another, expensive vacation we can't afford. Whereas that means in 2 years, you're going to be in the same place and you're going to be wishing, what are we going on that dumb vacation for anyway? We fought the whole time and it rained and, you got to make sure that you're doing it all on purpose. You watch some of these shows, man, of some of these, nitwit is the nice word, where they're talking about their budget and what they spend and what they do and how much debt they have, and it just shocks you. And it kind of makes you feel better about yourself because, well, at least I'm not that crazy guy, or this lady that, spent the mortgage at Lululemon or something crazy like that. You got to be a grown-up. Do it all on purpose. This means even financially, make yourself a goal. Make yourself a set of goals to follow and work backwards from that. There's lots of great systems you could follow. Dave Ramsey is kind of the classic Christian one, but there's other ones. It doesn't have to be that exactly. Seems to work for a lot of folks. But get a plan, work backwards from what it would take to get there, and then when you're putting money away, you know what you're putting it away for. There's a great book. It's an American classic novel called A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which is not about, this, but there's a whole story. It's about these Jewish immigrants that are growing up in New York, and the mom is teaching the little girl. She's saying, every time you get money, you need to put some of it away. And she shows a little jar that she has. Says, this is so that we can buy land and have our own house. And there's a great speech that she gives. If you can't pay the heating bill because you had to put some aside and you don't touch the savings for the building, you just remember, we're staying cold so that we can have our own land. If there's ever, you can't eat what you want, you got to eat beans again, you can't get meat, you just remember, we're not eating meat so that we can be there someday. And I love the focus that demonstrates, which is what we all have to have. You likely have to pay off some debts here and not be racking up more debt, and that can be tough. Especially, when you've got friends that don't really care whether or not they fall into debt or not, and they're always going out and doing fun things without you. You should add into that a plan for investment, for growth. How are you going to retire? And again, I'm not a financial guru. I'm not the one that knows about all this stuff, but you need to take the time for yourself to look into it. I would say that at the very least, track what you're doing, have some plans, have some goals, and move forward. And if you really buckle down, and I should throw tithing in here as well, you'd be surprised how fast the Lord will bless you and how fast you can dig out of a hole that you got yourself into. And I would say many other aspects of your life are going to change based on how well you handle these finances. So make sure that you're looking to it carefully. So continuing our talk about living a complete life, looking at every aspect of your life and maximizing it and doing it as unto the Lord. Last time we talked about the inner life. Today we're talking about responsibilities. We looked about your professional life, your financial life, and here's the last one. I'm actually kind of excited to talk about this one. This is what I'll call your domestic life. And by domestic life, what I mean is everything that happens at home. Everything that happens at home. This means the house. This means the car, this means vacations, this means chores, this means projects, this means disasters that you got to fix, all the rest of that. Now you can see how these things are descending in urgency and in importance, but this is still a very important thing. You need to have a domestic plan because why? Well, you live there, don't you? I put it like this one time. I was at St. Clair Correctional Facility doing one of the classes that we do, and we were talking about how you need to make, try your best to make things a little bit better. I was saying you can't fix, the judicial system. You can't change the guards. You can't change the gangs, whatever, fellas. But you can make this place a little bit better by you being in it. And this one fellow raised his hand, and you can hardly blame him for saying this, but he said, why would I want to help this place at all? And I was kind of stumped because it was one of my early days of doing it. But the guy that had been there a long time, he leans over his chair and he goes, well, you have to live here, don't you? And everybody kind of laughed. It was funny. That's such a simple answer. He's like, yeah, you may not like being here. You might hate the way it's run, but you still have to live here. so why not make it better? And I'd say it's the same thing for us. Don't let the house just be somewhere you sleep. Make it great. Make it a wonderful place to be. You ever been to somebody's house and you walk in the door and you just feel at home, you just feel welcome. You're just like, I wish I could stay here, man. This is a great house, it's a great place to be. You like staying there, you like hanging out. Maybe when you were a kid, you had a friend's house that for some reason, just something about that house, you wanted to stay there. I had friends that would come over to my house and just stay for hours because my mom was a sweetheart and she kept it clean, and we had a backyard with a little sandbox, and it was great, and I had a Nintendo 64, and that was fun. And then I know later on I found out they would go home and it was not like that for them. And so it was like a haven for them to be at our house. And so why don't you make your house like that? You ever go out to, vacation somewhere, you go to a hotel, you go to some of these places at Disney World that I've had the blessing to go to, and like, I'd rather live here. I'd rather live in this place. So let me ask you this question. What would it take to make your house like that? What would it take to make your world where you are the king of that castle like that? All these practical things. It starts real basic. It starts with chores. Man, it really makes me get frustrated sometimes how many adults don't want to sweep their floor or vacuum the carpet or take out the trash or wash the dishes. And grown husbands and wives arguing with each other about who's going to take the trash out and mow the lawn and all that stuff. It's really silly. You've got to learn how to do that. This also includes maintenance. You've got to learn how to maintain the things that you have. And there's some things that, you're going to have to pay somebody to do. But I would encourage you that at your house, learn how to take care of the things that you've got. I have learned in the years I've been having my own houses how to take apart a toilet and put it back together. Not because I was really interested in plumbing or went to school, but I've had just about every problem with a toilet you can have, and I have had to go through the process several times. And now I just know how to do that. Drywall. We had, I'll tell a story another time about how we had a leak in the wall and somebody had put cement inside the thing to hold the pipes together, and it prevented me from getting into the wall. So I've had my adventures. And over time, you learn how to do these things. So, YouTube will teach you just about everything you want to know. So you're already on it. If you're watching this, go ahead and find something. They'll show you how to do that next project. But it's not just maintenance and the basics. You should also be thinking about projects. What would it take to make this place really great? You go, well, the living room is fine, but the carpet's kind of worn and gross. The last owner had a dog, and you can really tell. And it doesn't matter what we do. It's just disgusting. All right, well, now we've got a financial goal. We've got a target that we're working for. We're going to update this living room. We're going to get a new carpet, whatever it may be. You got to be able to do that. Make time. And this outside too. Fellas like to take care of their yards, man. Once you own your own grass, you really start to care about what that grass looks like. You start to think to yourself, why is it not growing back here? I bet you it's that tree. And now you got to, think about getting the tree down. And I love doing that. It's a long, slow, years process to make the place you live into a great place to be. And once you got the big projects handled, and that list starts to get shorter, you start thinking about what we call improvements, whether that's you want to update your furniture. My wife and I did not have one new piece of furniture until, 5 years ago. We'll be married 13 years next month. Everything we had was either a gift or we, got secondhand from somebody. And then finally, when we bought our own couch, we thought we were hot stuff, man. It takes time. This extends also to your cars and to your possessions that you have. Everybody wants to get a new car, and then they'll even call you and say, aren't you sick of that old car? But, maintain what you've got. If you've got an older car, clean it up. Clean it up. Learn how to detail it. Learn how to clean it yourself. Make your kids get out there and vacuum it if you got some kids. I'm talking about maximizing everything you've got and then thinking how you upgrade it. And that's really how you think about everything in your life. This applies to even the domestic life that you have, your trips, your activities. What do we do at this house? Is your house a great place to be? If you like being there, you'll be more inclined to have other people come there, and then other opportunities start presenting themselves, and your house starts to be like the place to be, and everybody likes being there, and you like being there. And this is one reason, among many, I'll just throw this in here at the end, why we should never be denigrating the stay-at-home mom, the housewife that looks after that house. Make no mistake, that is a full-time job. Cooking and cleaning and taking care of the house and all that is full-time. And so if it takes a full-time job just to keep it at a pleasurable level, then start making a plan and thinking about how can we maximize and improve what we've got. For my part, when I come home at the end of the week, I've got my weekend. I try to get one big project and one small project done. This last week, we cleared out the garage. So that was a whole production. You got to take everything out, put it all back in, and throw away everything that you don't want to keep anymore. And then we had a smaller project, which in my case was going out to the backyard and putting down fertilizer and putting down insect killer and all the rest. It doesn't take long, but it's just got to be done, So weed whacking, I was doing that. take the time to make your domestic life something great. Because I'll tell you what, if you love your job, you're in shape, church is going good, and all, the money's coming, but you hate being at home, that's going to be a miserable way to live. So take the time to make it a project. Maybe you never even thought to yourself that this is something that needs my creative attention. So I'm running out of time again. We've talked today about your major responsibilities as we look at every aspect of your life, your professional, financial, and domestic life. Last time we looked at the inner life. We got more coming up next week. And I'll just say, doing all these things to remind you, it makes God happy, but it also is going to make you happy. And it's going to make your calling worthwhile as you do it. Being a Christian is not just about doing religious things. It is about affecting every area of your life and doing all as heartily as unto the Lord. And if these things that I'm describing today, your finances, your house, whatever, are making you miserable, it's time to make a change. This has been Difference Makers. My name is Pastor Tyler from Calvary Chapel, Trussville. Thank you so much for listening today. You can find out more about the church at calvarychapeltrussville.com. And I want to remind you about our resource network that we're building at ironworks.media. We've got books, videos, podcasts, all sorts of things to help you stay sharp and stay strong. Sign up for our mailing list and you can get 2 free ebooks today, just in time for our book release coming up this fall. And don't forget to like and subscribe this video to BGTV as well. And comment and let us know which area that we talked about today needs your attention and what are you going to do to be a more well-rounded person. As you learn to live a complete life as unto the Lord, go make a difference, friends. I'll see you next time.